I believe we have two big issues in front of us right now, and I think they're not necessarily just politically related, and so I think it's important to think about both of them. One is obviously water quality, and the other is climate change. Our farmer members are saying our weather patterns are changing, and I can tell from when I started farming through now I'm closer to what I would consider my retirement, and I can tell you that things have changed.
Our state have the weather that usually have enough water, enough rainfall during the growing season, and then which really make this land as ideal for producing food. This is also a place that don't experience a significant increase in temperature, and the reason is actually very interesting because we grow so much crop in our landscape. There's so much water has been evaporated to the atmosphere in our local climate, to the atmosphere, and then that cools down our local temperature. With that being said, it doesn't necessarily mean the warming trend is stopping. And then if we're thinking about the, in the future going forward for 100 years, we're gonna still expect to see an increase of the temperature. What I think more concerning is the increase of the extreme events. You can actually feel that. It can be more frequent drought or more frequent flooding. And then this has been scientifically proved is happening in our state.
You always want to think that maybe we're just caught in a cycle, but the more and more you see the research, the more and more you realize that this may become more the norm, so we have to adapt to that norm.
We also have this sort of an advisory committee of farmers that are very interested in, at this point, sort of climate and carbon. And so we do call them our Farm Bureau carbon team. But there have been versions of that team in almost my whole 9 years at Farm Bureau. And the name is going to change, but really the core group of people have been people who are very interested in what we're doing for water, for climate, and for carbon. And it includes people like Haley and Colby and Michael.
I met her in 2016, and from then I've been every time she calls, I just can't say no to her. I gotta be involved.
He's not alone in this, but he does this where he's like, he'll call me and say, I know you're busy, I just wanted to maybe, tell you what I'm thinking about, what I'm reading and what I'm seeing. And he always apologizes when he calls me to tell me his opinion on this policy stuff or what's happening on the farm. And I have other farmers that do that, and they should never apologize for calling and sharing their opinion on what's happening, what they're seeing us do, but more importantly, kind of the struggles that they're going through. That's what we're here for. We are very lucky as an organization to have someone like Michael as a member.
Agriculture is such a major component of economy, workforce in this state. 75% or more of the land in the state is devoted for agriculture production, and so it's so important, such an important thing for our state.
So we have a very diverse state, adapted climatically, which just means the climate is pretty different from north to south. And then the soil types are, overall, they're mollisols and alpha soils, but there's a lot of soil diversity here. We get, I think, a little bit too much of this dismissal of that diversity. Because of that, any central uniform blanket approach to mandatory nutrient loss reductions is probably not going to work very well. It might work great in some places, and it might be a disaster in other places. So any approach to reducing these nutrient losses, they have to account for the fact that what might work well in one location won't be the same as in a different location.
How I see the cover crop might be differently than somebody else, just based on my topography, and letting those people make those decisions on their own ground, I think, are very, very important, because they can design their operation to address those issues how it works best for their operation.
When I think about on-farm conservation, either for soil erosion purposes, soil health, or even water quality. We have a lot of farmers in our organization, and I would have a hard time going to, let's say, 10 of them at random and saying, what would the perfect solution be? Because their perfect solution is going to be, those are 10 different perfect solutions. It's something that's important to our farmer members, but it looks different to each of them. The conservation answer is different, whether it's a farm they own or they rent. It's a different solution if they're in the northern part of the state, the central part of our state, or the southern part of our state. And so I find it really hard to think about how we would regulate the solution. Farmers, according to my anecdotal experience and some of this research that we actually had some of our farmers participate in, they care about the environment. So it's more than a talking point of, I live here, my family drinks this water too. I mean, it's legitimate.
Farmers know the best of their land, and then they want to make sure that the yield is not compromised, and then also the economics work for them. So I think face the reality that there's going to be a transition period that you really need to help them to make that transition, not just say, okay, you have to do that. And I think that's a very different situation. I feel that we really need to help them instead of forcing them.
As far as I'm concerned anymore, the people that are farming out here anymore are really sharp. They are very quick to adapt very complex, very crucial technology in an effort to produce food, fuel for this nation and beyond. I think it's a poor rap to say they don't care because they do. Go out and ride with a farmer or see what they do and have them explain what they do, and I think your opinion will change on them.
Knowing that what we're doing today is probably making a difference for the future is very rewarding, and I think that you would find that most farmers think that way, because you're not going to be farming long or even keeping farms long unless you're taking care of the ground that you're farming, and everybody knows that. So I think it crosses all of our minds day in and day out, because it's our livelihood, and that's how we make a living. We got to take care of what we have if we want to have a successful future. Basically, just turn yourself around and stay there until I tell you to come down to the west side, okay? This harvest season is probably one of the best harvest seasons we've had in a really long time as far as weather's concerned. We've made, I think, really good progress given the circumstances that we're under right now. We're down to about 600 acres of corn, and hopefully another 10 days to 2 weeks we'll have it knocked out.
Could you tell me and walk me through what happened early on in the summer for you?
Yeah, so on the 3rd of August, I got up like I normally do. I got done with the irrigator, I went to go get the mower, and I had a problem with the tractor, and I had to go get a hydraulic hose. And they couldn't get the solid line for me for a couple days, so I came back. I had to stop at the house real quick for something, and then it was about a quarter to 11, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out. I know Dad's working on the dryer, and I'm going to tell him that I'm not able to mow today because I had this problem, and that I'm going to help him work on the dryer. And my 8-year-old son Tucker hopped in the truck with me, and we drove out to the farm, and I drove around the dryer where I knew he would be, and I found it kind of odd that I didn't see him standing around it or working around it. So I got out of the pickup truck and I started walking over the dryer, and I saw him laying there. But, I learned shortly after he died that I didn't just do this job or choose to do this job because I love farming. I chose it because I loved him.
You knew that.
I know he did, but I don't think I was obsessed with farming. I think I was obsessed with my dad. I'm
emotionally, I'm not okay. And I think it's going to take a long time before I am. Because he wasn't just my father. He was my friend, my best friend. And that's what I miss more than anything, is my best friend. Compared to most people, I spent more time with my dad than anybody. You get up every day, you go to work with him. And it wasn't hard. I mean, it was enjoyable. And that's not always the case. Sometimes, people go to work with their parents, and it can be hard because parents can be overbearing, they can be critical, they can be pessimistic. I mean, so can the kids too. I mean, it takes both sides, obviously, but my dad was not that way. He was an encourager, an optimist. We worked at this together. He didn't see it as his. He didn't see it as mine. We saw it as one. And that's what was really awesome about this. I mean, we were literally, both of us were living the dream, and we got to do it for 14 years, which is a blessing. And that's why I feel bad that I have all these terrible, these feelings, because I did spend more time with my dad than most people do. And it wasn't just, I got to spend time with him. It was great time. It was good time. But that's probably why it hurts so much. He always put his character and his honesty first. And if it meant that it cost him money to be honest, then that's fine. Because at the end of the day, you got to be able to sleep at night. That's the way my dad always put it. And he goes, if I can do my job and do it to the best of my ability and be honest all the way through it, that's all that matters. My dad's famous line to me that I can remember growing up, whether it be if I was involved in a sport, if I was involved in, just being in school and whatnot, he'd always look at our results and say, you did really well, but, is there anything you think you can improve on, or things that we can do better? And obviously there always is, and it wasn't a sense of you took it as a criticism. I never took it as a criticism. I just took it as a opportunity to always look for improvement, to never be content with where you're at, because when you get content with where you're at, you stop learning, you stop trying, and then you get stagnant. And I think that was always his message going forward, is standing still is always worse than moving forward. And my dad was always about moving forward. He never looked back, and you can see that in the ground that we're still farming today, because it's in much better shape. At least some of the first ground that he ever farmed by himself is in much better shape today than it was the day he got it. And it's because of the time and effort and the unwillingness to be stagnant that he put into it.
What are you most proud about Michael?
What am I most proud about? I guess the way he treats me, and that he allows me to be me, and I'm very proud of that because it makes me feel useful still in the operation. This is all I've ever wanted to do. And the running joke around here is that I don't go to work every day. I enjoy it so much that it's a pleasure to do it. The other thing is I've been very proud of his ability to see beyond the box. Just because you did something for 50 years doesn't mean you have to keep doing it that way. I get appalled when people stifle the young people coming into whatever the business is, because most of the time those people, they can really take it to the next level if you allow them to do that. And I believe Michael has done that here.